So the dream team for the latest round of the Rugby Championship. This was hard. Very hard. There's some guys in here and some guys not in here. More so the latter, which is causing me problems. It was really hard in some of these positions. I try not to cop out too much by doing honorable mentions, but I feel like I'm going to be doing a few of those today because, yeah, some kind of big performers don't make this team. I'll go through them. As always, it is more like a fantasy team. It's not a specific set of 15 players position by position. It's just these loose positions of 15 of the best players from the weekend. You guys let me know who I've missed out, who shouldn't be here, all that kind of good stuff, and we'll have a chat about it in the comments. But let's get started with the props. He is one of my favorites. I must admit, I've got a thing for him. I don't know why. Stephen Kitsoff, he probably should start for the Springboks. I know he's the super sub, and I've been saying this again and again. I'm like a broken record, but the dude's got it, man. He needs to be the starter. The Beast has got all that experience in a young team, so it's very good to keep him around. But I think at his age, perhaps you bring him off the bench, maybe play it game by game. But Kitsoff is really putting in the performances when he is there. 3 passes and 4 runs. Okay, decent. 11 meters run is pretty good per run for a prop. 15 out of 15 tackles. His work rate is always exceptional. Sure enough, he did give away 2 penalties, but he's also in and around the breakdown quite a lot. His work rate's good, like I said. Scrum work is good, so the guy's got an engine on him. He needs to be playing more minutes in the Springbok jersey because he's doing the thing proud. I will say before I go on, all these stats are from ESPN. Once again, Rugby Pass are a bit slow in getting their stats up, so they're not ready by the time I make this video. ESPN's great because they do stats live, but Rugby Pass is better in the end because they do deeper stats like turnovers, line-out takes, all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of bare bones, but also a bit of a feeling from the game. So yeah, it's a pity Rugby Pass for some reason are a bit slower these last 2 rounds. Next prop I've gone with the Santiago Medrano from the Pumas. I almost said Jaguares. I'm going to make that mistake more than once. This guy was brought in to kind of stabilize that scrum. Their scrum's not been fantastic, the Rugby Championship, the Pumas. But I feel like he was a large part in stabilizing what they did. He's a big boy. And, he had 1 pass, 3 runs for 1 meter, which is great. Because, I mean, that's not what he's there for. The guy's there to scrum. But also, he made 11 out of 11 tackles. So, again, pretty good work rate. The scrum percentage was up from last week. He was running good support lines for a prop, which is amazing. He conceded 1 penalty. From memory, it was at scrum time. But I still think he had a pretty solid performance all round, so I hope to see more of him going forward. Next, hooker. I've thrown an All Black in here. I've got the Springboks jersey on, but I've got the All Black still in my heart a little bit. Going with Cody Taylor. He got a try, which is something, if you guys seen my videos before, you do know I love tries, even if they're rolling maul tries. I love them all. 4 passes, 11 runs, 33 meters. He's like kind of leans towards the more dynamic side of hookers as the way he carries the ball. Beat 1 defender, 4 from 4 tackles. The line-out percentages were pretty good. But if you were to tell me, hey, 2 cents, put Malcolm Marx in there, put Augustine Creevy in there, okay, happy as. Like, this is one of those weeks where I'm pretty torn as to which one to go for, but I've gone with Taylor. Perhaps showing my All Blacks bias a wee bit there. I'll admit that. Next, in the second row, I've gone with Franco Mostert. This guy, again, he's not the ball-carrying machine, and I say that every time I read his stats because they seem not that impressive. 2 passes, 4 runs for 2 meters. He's blowing nobody away. He's not doing a Brodie Retallick dummy pass. But what he is doing is making 24 out of 26 tackles. In a game built on defense, this guy was one of the rocks of it. And he got airborne at one point when Malcolm Marx scored his try. That maul was going forward. Mostert, who'd taken the ball, and I don't have his line-out stats. Like I said, the Rugby Pass didn't have them available. But he was airborne. The maul came down, and he managed to tilt up on top of it and was just riding it like a surfboard top of that maul. Must have had the best view in the house of Marx putting the ball down. but it was something I hadn't seen. So yeah, big effort from him. The guy is a workaholic, and he just makes tackles for fun. And his line-out work, as throughout Super Rugby, is always impeccable. So big effort from him. Next, and this guy is starting to make a habit of this, I've gone with Thomas Lavanini from the Pumas. He had 6 passes and 4 runs for no meters, which is not all that impressive given the guy is his size. He's kind of like Mostert, and then I thought, throw some of that bulk around, son. Get a wee bit lower, get forward. But 11 out of 12 tackles, and that hit on Falau. Like, Falau's already scored 1 magic try in that game with those jinking and driving runs. It's like the 79th minute and 40 seconds. Falau's jinking and driving. He's gone past a couple of people, and then, bam, Lavanini. Ball spills out, Argentina win the game. For that moment, I give him a lot of credit. So he is in my dream team. Next, and I think Bok fans would probably have my guts for garters if I didn't put this guy in. I've gone with Pieter-Steph du Toit. He had 1 pass, 1 offload, 5 runs in 18 meters, which is solid without being spectacular. He beat 2 defenders, which is pretty good. 24 out of 29 tackles. So like Mostert, he made 24 tackles, which was huge. I mean, that's a quarter of 100 tackles, pretty much. The whole All Blacks team, I think on the revised stats that I saw from ESPN, was just under 50. This guy made 24 on his own. And the emotion that he showed at the end was just gold. Like, I think a lot of South Africans and non-South Africans, myself included, kind of really felt that moment. And it was... it was just massive for that game and massive for rugby. So good on him. He put in a lot of effort. There's always debate whether he should be in the second row or the back row, but either way, he put in a pretty good shift there. Next, from the Pumas, and you'll kind of start to see why I'm wearing a Springboks jersey and a Jaguares hat, because there's a common theme with a lot of the players I've chosen. Pablo Matera from the Pumas. He had 5 passes and 2 offloads. 7 runs for 36 meters. He is always a pretty good ball carrying loose forward. 1 clean break, which was just a set up a try. It led to Delgi's try. He set up that line break. And Medrano was running a support line, if you go back and watch it. He beat 3 defenders. And on the defensive side, he's not just about the dynamic kind of Adi Savia style stuff. 15 out of 17 tackles. Yeah, I think he only gave away 1 penalty. Might have been 2, but I'm pretty sure it's 1. Pretty big effort from him. He's a star in the making. I think once Krevy retires, he's probably going to be captain of the Pumas. I hope we can keep him in Super Rugby, because I like watching this guy week in and week out. Next, and I've got a proper number 8 in here this time. I should probably put Matera over here. Warren Whiteley. Now, if there's a guy who I thought, man, does he need to lift his game, like especially with how well Vermeulen played in that England series. I know Vermeulen's not available for the Springboks for this Rugby Championship, so it's not kind of fair to compare them, but Warren Whiteley has not been setting the world alight with his performances thus far. But man, did he do a good job this week. He had a try assist, 5 passes, 4 runs, 18 meters. Again, solid without being spectacular. Had a clean break. That's pretty good. Beat a defender. 20 out of 21 tackles. Defensive maestro this week. And there was one point when TJ Perenara probably should have scored. Like, TJ's pretty quick. And he was kind of running a diagonal line. But Whiteley just shadowed him like TJ's own shadow. Wouldn't let him get past. And TJ ended up trying to jink him because I figured he thought he wasn't going to have the pace to beat him out wide. Maybe there was somebody else coming from the other side, I'm not sure. But Warren just smothered him. Try-serving tackle towards the end of the game. It was that kind of heart that won South Africa that game, and he was a very key part of it on defence for sure. And his contribution on attack was nothing to be kind of snuffed at. We get into the backs. This one was hard. I've gone with Faf de Klerk. And to be honest, his stats don't really do him justice. I mean, he had 32 passes, 4 runs for 5 meters. Like, ideally, you'd like his run meters to be a little higher. Like, if you're a scrum half and you're going to run, you want it to be at those right moments where you can kind of break the line. For tackles, he had 9 out of 14. So he's above 50%, but it's nothing spectacular. I mean, I know scrum halves often put themselves in places where it's going to be a little man on a big man. So their tackle stats are usually not that fantastic. But even that, 9 out of 14, I mean, 9 tackles is good, but the missed ones is nothing spectacular. He conceded 2 penalties. He had some loose box kicks. Seemed to be struggling with that wind a wee bit. But he played 80 minutes again, which I'm kind of not a fan of. I want either Cronje or Papier or somebody else to get a go. Give him a bit of a rest. But his defensive harrying really made Aaron Smith uncomfortable in this game. I mean, Aaron Smith's one of the best number 9s in the game. He got subbed really early because he wasn't able to kind of have that impact that the All Blacks are used to him having. And I feel like a lot of that was down to Faf. I initially had Guinea down, so credit to Guinea as well. He got a try and did pretty well in his game. But I'm going to give it to Faf because if you can get Aaron Smith subbed early, you must be doing something right. And obviously it was probably not just what Faf was doing, but Faf was a big part of it. Next, number 10. And we'll go on with Nico Sanchez. He had a try, and he has had so many tries throughout the Rugby Championship. He is such a focal part of what the Pumas are doing. 2 conversions and a penalty goal, and in this game, like the other game, kicks were crucial. 16 passes, 5 runs for 26 meters, 7 out of 10 tackles. The guy, I mean, without him, I'm not sure how good the Pumas are. I'm not sure what that depth is like at 10. I hope we don't have to find out anytime soon because he's just playing magic rugby and I'm enjoying watching him. In saying that, Pollard's game with the boot was also fantastic. That guy brought his kicking game when he needed it because in the first game of the Rugby Championship, his boot was way off. And I'll also give a mention here to Elton Yankees because that guy cops a lot of criticism, but he helped set up some plays when Pollard moved to 12. He came on earlier than probably expected. And even he made 9 out of 9 tackles, which is one of the main things he gets critiqued about. I was worried when he came on, but he did well. So I'm giving it to Sanchez, but I'm just giving a quick mention to those guys as well because they deserve it. Although Pollard didn't play, he only played 10 for just over half of that game. He missed a few tackles, but still his boot was the difference in that game. And Elton did his job and did it pretty well. So credit to those guys. Next, midfield, I've gone with Geronimo De La Fuente from the Pumas. He had a try assist, which was a great kind of on the ground. He'd been tackled a couple meters out, popped it up to Sanchez, who went in and scored. 4 passes, 2 offloads, so he's looking for the offload. 6 runs, 9 meters, beat a defender, and defensively 11 out of 14 tackles is pretty solid. Pretty happy with his performance. The Argentinian outside backs and midfielders, along with Sanchez at number 10, have looked really good this Rugby Championship. So if you're an Argentinian fan, I think you've got to be pretty happy with where things are heading. Next, I've got a Wallaby in here. I've gone with Reece Hodge. A lot of question marks about him at 13 before the series started. So with Karevi and Kuridrani out, a lot of questions as to whether he had kind of the stuff to play 13 because he's played 15, he's played 14, he's played 10. Played all around the shop for the Rebels and for the Wallabies. But, 2 try assists. People will say one of them was a touch forward. But either way, 2 try assists, 4 passes, 6 runs, 15 meters. A clean break, 2 defenders beaten, made 3 out of 4 tackles. Is he the future of 13 for the Wallabies? I don't know. Is he going to warm the bench as the guy who covers pretty much half the back line? Maybe. But either way, when he's given the chance, he's not letting his side down. And that massive boot of his, even though he didn't really need to use it in this game, it's always a threat. So he just adds that extra kind of thing to the team. So I'm putting him in there. Next, and I've gone with another Wallaby. I've gone with Israel Folau. Now, I know he probably should have passed at the end. Lavanini smacked him a big one and he dropped the ball when, if he'd passed, the Wallabies probably could have stolen the win. That being said, he got a try, which was magic. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it because he beat multiple defenders, maybe 5 defenders in his little jinking driving run. It was a right winger scoring in the left corner, and he kind of took the ball towards the middle-ish part of the field. 8 passes and 2 offloads. His offload is always a threat. 17 runs for 77 meters, so good running stats. A clean break, 2 defenders beaten. 2 defenders beaten. Well, I guess they couldn't get a hand on him, so that'll be why that stat's not higher, because he just jinked his way past them. He did miss 3 tackles, which was a bit disappointing. And like I said, that last pass. But he's an X-Factor player, and every time he gets the ball, you think something's going to happen. And to be fair, some of the work he did was kind of in drawing in defenders. So other guys had more space, and that's kind of the Sonny Bill effect as well. So he has that same effect. So yeah, a good effort from Israel Folau. Next, and here's an obvious choice. Apiwa Dianti from the Springboks, 2 tries. A pretty sick little sidestep a couple of times. Once to put the ball under the posts and once to score. Like, I mean, when I say put them under the post, like to go closer to the poles. He had 1 pass, but 4 runs, 39 meters, 3 clean breaks. It says only 2 defenders beaten, but the same thing with Folau. I think it's those little runs where they don't even get a hand on him. 5 out of 6 tackles, which is another thing that he kind of and Mapimpi have been criticised a bit for is their defence, but 5 out of 6 tackles. What a step. The guy's got a massive future. I think all Box fans can get pretty excited about seeing him play a lot more. Last one. I've had to pick, and I've gone with Rico Ioane. Again, perhaps I'm showing a little bit of All Blacks bias here, but he did score 2 tries. One of them was a sitter that most of us probably could have scored, but one of them he kind of got the ball at a standing start and didn't really have any rights to score, as Justin Marshall put it. But 2 tries, 84 meters, 5 clean breaks, which is huge, 6 defenders beaten, and 6 out of 8 tackles. The guy doesn't usually disappoint. He's on a losing team, which he's not usually part of, but the guy always puts his hand up. In saying that, if you put Delgi here with his try, I'm a happy man. Boffelli, again, solid runs, long distance penalties, I'm happy. Put Cheslin Colby in there, came on from the bench. Sure, he missed a tackle on his try, but he made tackles when it counted as well after that, and his intercept was another key part in that Springbok win. It was a great read. If you put Moyano there from the Pumas, he beat, I think, about 8 defenders. Dane Halapeti scored a try. Sure, he missed Delgi on his tackle, but even his stats look pretty nice. Ben Smith, in the first half, he was all over the place. Perhaps a bit quieter in the second half, but that guy doesn't usually put in a bad performance either. And Willie LaRue, I mean, he got a yellow card, which kind of, I don't usually put yellow carded guys in my dream team. But I mean, that guy had a try and a try assist. It was a great read to put a bit of pressure on for that Jordy Barrett throw. Heads up kind of stuff. If you put any of those guys in, I'm not going to be complaining. So this is what I'm talking, honourable mentions. There were a lot of good performers this week, and other guys that I haven't mentioned, I'm sure. You guys let me know who you think they are in the comments. That's the dream team for this week. It was a hell of a week. Apart from that second half in the Pumas game when not a lot happened, it was 3 pretty good halves of rugby. A lot of drama. 2 away teams getting the wins, and I read a tweet just there. I retweeted it that like this is the first time since like I think was it 1971 that the All Blacks and the Wallabies have been beaten at home kind of on the same weekend. So crazy stuff, history making weekend. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the players. Who else you thought could have made it? Who else do you thought played well? And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you guys later.